Okay everyone, I'm going to show you how to make a main menu and a pause menu. I'm going into 5.5.3. You can use 0.1, should be fine. Now I'm going to load a third person template from here. I'm going to send it to one of my drives, this one. Now in here, I'm going to call it main menu project. And now, like I always do, you remember the world settings right here come from this window, and I've got them over here so that I can see them easily. And this shows us the game mode and the pawn class. The game mode is the third person game mode. The pawn class is this standard third person with the Quinn model. Now I want to do several things to customize them so that I know that I'm working with my own files. So in the content directory, create my own folder. Let's call it main menu. So now I have a main menu directory, and I'm going to save my own version of this level directly into this, and I'll just call it my 3RD map, like this. And you'll see up here in the top left, it's now loaded my map. So I'm going to, right now I'm going to modify this, but to guarantee that I know just by looking at it that it's my map, I'm gonna delete the walls to begin with, right? And then I'm gonna go to this pawn class, and here's the browse to asset button. It automatically goes and finds that asset and where it is, which is in third person blueprints, but I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to call it my 3RD person right there, like this, and I'm going to drag that up into third person. It would also work if I just went like this and just went down the list until I found it. So now, my third person map, when you click it, will load my third person blueprint. So I'm going to go in there, and looking at the viewport, you can see that's the standard one we've got. So I'm going to change it to many, and you have to change the ABP to whatever animation blueprint, which is what ABP is. It explains what animations he's using and when, so that he's got that. Then I'm going to go into the camera boom, and as you recall, that is the vector back to where the camera is located behind him. I'm going to go here and enable camera lag and camera rotation lag, compile and save, and then close that. So when I start, now I've got him, and you can see I've got the camera smoothing working. And so I'm going to go back to the content directory, and I'll create our menu. And you do that by creating a widget. So you can just say widget blueprint, and just create the default user blueprint, and I'll call it menu widget. I'm going to double click that and open it. The first thing you have to do is drop a canvas into the scene. There's our canvas. I'm going to do a vertical box right here. I can just anchor it to the center. Doesn't have to be exact. You can use, these variables over here to get it to be precise if you want. But you could just, you're moving it around. Then I'm gonna go get a button by searching for button and drop 3 of them in like that. Then I'm going to search for text, drop text into each button 3 times. I'm going to change the first one. I got that selected, so the detail is for that button. The start game button. The options button. And the quit game button, right? Now I'm going to select each of those. You can do it here by shift clicking, or down here. Then I'm going to go over to the font. So now this is the font for all 3 of them, and change that to a larger number like this. Now I'm going to go and select the buttons by shift clicking. Go to padding and add some padding above each of them so that they're spread apart. Then I'm going to go back up here and compile and save and quit for now. We're not going to load the main menu from inside this map. We're going to load it from a black screen. So create a new level that is empty, like this. Then I'm going to save that as main menu map. So now in here we have main menu map and my third map, just like that. And we save it. Now, when you run this level, you'll see that even though it has no game mode, no default pawn class, by default, it is choosing whichever is the current default pawn class. So we're going to want to create our own game mode. So let's go over here and say blueprint class. And there is an option for a game mode base. So now it's asking for the name. Let's call it my game mode. Just like that. We drop it in up here, and you'll see it still by default shows this pawn class. Now I can change it here, but let me show you that this is where it comes from. In here, we open that, and that default game mode, all of its parts are right here. The default pawn class is right here. Let's go in there and select none, because it's going to be only a menu. There isn't going to be a pawn in there. And so now that I've changed it to none, you can see it automatically changes to none up here. I compile and save. And now, when we start, there's no pawn. Now, within any level, there is a level blueprint. You find that by going to this hierarchy icon up here and come down and say, what is the level blueprint? And you open it. And it's going to be empty right now. So it's not doing anything in particular, but we'll tell it to do something new. Let's come off of this and say create widget. So I just type create wid, and it finds that. And then it says, what do you want me to create? And so I will go down here and say menu widget. So now it's going to create menu widget, which is what we created earlier. And then we drag off from after you create the widget, add to viewport. So we add the widget to the viewport. You need to remember to connect the return value to the target. So it's passing that. Saying, okay, after we begin, we create the widget, add it to the viewport. Now, you're not going to do this by dragging off. Whenever you need to call the get player controller, and there it is right there, which you do a lot, because that's whenever you find out what the player is doing, whether it's the keyboard or the controller he's holding or whatever. Because it's a function. It's not going to be something executed from here. It's a standalone function. It's just good practice to help you along. That way the things that are showing up here in this window will prompt you correctly. But I'm going to come in here and say set mouse cursor, set show mouse cursor right there. So show mouse cursor. It's connected to this. Now this is a Boolean variable, which means it's either off or on. Right now it's off. Let's turn the cursor on. We connect that. That is all that our main map's going to do. Because we open this main map, it creates the widget, which is our menu widget, adds it to the viewport, and turns the cursor on. That's doing that. And so, back within our menu widget, you will notice that there are two modes. There's the designer mode, where you lay out your buttons and your background. And then there's a graph mode. We haven't done anything in graph mode where you control it yet, right? But I'm going to add a couple more details. First, let's look for an image. Add image, bring it in here. You can anchor it to the center, set it to these positions. Doesn't have to be exact right now. I'm just gonna change it black because it's annoying being so bright. If you go up under brush, you can bring in an image of your own. I'm gonna bring one in, just any 1920 by 1080 image. I'm gonna bring in this one here of a jungle. So we go back into the menu widget. We go back into image, select, and the name of it was Jungle HD. And because I turned it black, you can't see it. So bring it back up. Let's dim it a little bit. Maybe make it a little bit green for no particular reason. And then save it. The only other thing now is it's lying on top of the other things. We want to move its Z order, the depth order, back as -1. It would be guaranteed to draw absolute first, meaning at the very bottom of the stack. And so now we can compile and save. One thing that I always like to do is make sure that these names are easily understood. Like right now, this is just called button 0, but I'm gonna click it down here and call it start button. And this one, even though we're not gonna use it today, options button. And the third one is quit game button, right? And now those are correctly named. And I'm always habitually coming up here and saying compile, save. Now I'm going to click the start button, scroll down here to events, and give it an event that will show up in the event graph. On clicked. So now on clicked start button. Now at the designer, we'll come back here. We're going to do one for quit as well. On clicked quit game button. Right, so now we have those two. Now you can come over here. Very straightforward. Drag off and say, when they click that, open level. There's two options, open level by name or by object reference. I'm going to do it by name. You come up here like this. Now we need to type in the name of our level. Has to be exactly the same as what we named it. And we named it My Third Map. So the way to get that exactly right is to go in there, edit it, you know, so like you're going to change it, and then copy. Then come back into your menu widget, go over to the graph menu where you were, and paste in the name of the map right there. So it's exactly the same. And so when that button is clicked, let's open that level by name. Now, good practice. Get player controller like this, not by dragging it off, but just looking for it. And take this value up here. Set show mouse cursor. Because we are clicking the start button, let's not show the mouse cursor anymore. Let's turn it off. So we're going to leave this turned off. And then, one more thing. Set input mode game only. There's three options: UI only, game only, or both. We're going to do game only. And then the ones that need to be executed are done in this order. Just like that. So let me tighten it up a little bit so it's easier to see. But when you click the start button, it will open level by name, My Third Map, and with the player's controller, turn the mouse cursor off and make sure it's back in game mode. So now when it's done with this, it will have loaded that map of ours and only game mode player control. So in other words, they won't be controlling the user interface right now while they can't see it, right? Then as you can imagine, on click quit, there is just a function called quit game, which we can do like this. Okay, quit, save. There is one last thing we have to worry about, and that is right here, the event construct. The event construct. You can come out here and you can grab these two, Control C, copy them, and then come up here and just paste them. Same exact thing, like that. And you can connect them like that. We're coming into the menu widget, so we're going to want the cursor turned on. And just like this one, we'll come out here so you can see it. Set input mode UI only, right? And you're going to want to have the player controller connected over there as well. Now that means when you first load the widget, turn the mouse cursor on for the player controller, and then make sure it is in UI mode only, so you're not controlling the game and the UI at the same time. And when they click start, it'll load a level, turn off the cursor. And when you quit, it just quits. And so now we have a functioning menu as far as this goes. So when we start in here, it brings us to, and we see our background. If we click quit, it quits the game. If I click options, nothing happens. But if I click start game, it goes to our level, loads up our third person character and our map. right now we can't pause or anything. And so I want to do that. We'll want to open a menu, but not by restarting. We'll want to pause the game. So I'm going to use the same widget, menu widget, duplicate it, and call it pause widget. Right? Go in here. It's the same one. I'm going to go into the graph for now and remove everything but the construct, just for now. And then go back into the designer. I'm going to go back to this image to begin with and just clear it and make that kind of dark image. And then all that is just a color tint applied to that image panel. And then I'm going to grab the alpha and bring it down to about half, so you're going to be able to see through that background to whatever is underneath. Right? Then come up here and we'll change the text. The first button will be resume. Second button will be return to main menu. And the third will be quit game. And the name of those buttons resume button, return to main button, and quit button. Right? Now we're going to go to the first button, scroll down here to where it says events, and we're going to click on clicked. So we're going to add this event, which is going to add it to the graph menu. So now we have one that says on clicked resume button. If we go back to designer, we can do the same thing for this one. And this one. On clicked. So on clicked resume, on clicked return to main, on clicked quit. Right? Now the way we set that up, as we did before, we can go, let's just do it the way I was showing you. Get player controller, drag off, set show mouse cursor, and set input UI only, because the pause menu will be user interface only. But while we're in a user interface, we want the mouse cursor on. So when it's first created, we do that. And that should be correct. Now on resume button, there is a function called set game paused, which they've already made. But remember, we are resuming the game. We've already paused it. So we're going to have pause turned off, not on. We're going to leave it off. And we're going to do the same thing we did here. Copy, paste. I'll paste it in approximately the same place for now. So this will be connected to that. And then from here, we go over, but we're going to say set input game only, because we are resuming the game, right? And so we have that turned on. But because this is only a pause, it's only a temporary state, we're going to also say remove the widget, remove this from the parent. you know, it's piggybacking on top of this menu. So so we're going to remove it from the parent, and we're going to set the input mode game only with player controller. And the mouse cursor will be off, going back into the game. You can't see the cursor. Going into the interface, or into the user interface, the pause menu, the cursor's on. Then we turn it back off and unload it. And then lastly, we do, we can do the same thing down here. We can say open level, but instead of by name, this time let's do it by object reference, like this. And then here, it's the same one we had before, quit game. Now, right now, you have to give it an object reference, and so we can just go click on that and show it. And that would be the name of our menu map. Okay, so we're not going to go back to playing the game with our character, jumping. We're going to go to the main menu map here. And if they press this button, we'll quit. Or those will resume and go back into the game. Now let's see how we're doing. So from this level, starts the game. Option doesn't do anything. Quit quits the game. Now, remember, we're inside the main menu map right now, and it has its own game mode that we created called My Game Mode with no pawn class. But the third person map has a game mode of its own, BP third person game mode, and we put our own pawn class in there. So let's look at that. Now if I'm going to find the third person blueprint right here in the blueprints, open it, it has the controls for the mouse and keyboard, or whatever it is we're using for input. And so you'll see here at the very top, it loads an input context, IMC, input mapping context. And you come in here and say, okay, use this input mapping context. And it has several actions in it: looking, moving, and jumping. Right? There is no pausing. So let's create a pause. Inside this directory, third person directory, is the input directory. And here's the input mapping context. And here are the three options: jump, move, look, but no pause. The actions are all right here: jump, move, look, and move. Okay, so I'm going to create an input action right here, and I'm going to call it IA, input action pause. All right, and it is very simple: trigger when paused. And the triggers, when it's triggered, is when it's pressed. So I press a button and it triggers a pause, whatever that is. And so we go back out here, go out one level. So go up one level in the directory, input mapping context. Now we can add, there's a little button to add one, and it'll show us the one we created, pause. And it's saying, what do you want to use to pause it? Now the jump button uses a space bar if you're using a keyboard, game face button bottom if it's using a controller, or a touchpad, touch one if it's an iPad or iPhone. In this case, we're just doing it for keyboards, but you can just come down here and go to keyboard, instead of using the escape key, which I still want to have available to me, I'm going to use the letter P. P for pause. So now we've got it so that when P is pressed, it will trigger whatever it is we want it to do. And so now that that's defined, we can go back to our third person character, which is going to be in, right there. But I'm going to open it by clicking the Find in Browser button. Open it up. And then we can go in here anywhere. And our input action will have been defined. So I can say IA space pause, and there it is. It found it. IA pause. And just like these, now we've created an input action called pause. And we can trigger whatever we want according to that. Best way to do it, drag off trigger, create widget, like this, and it's asking me what kind of widget. Pause widget, because we created one. There it is. So now there's a pause widget option. And you might recall, after you do that, once it's created, we want to add it to the viewport. Like this. You want to take the return value and connect it to the target. Otherwise it won't work. So those both have to be, the white line and the blue line need to be connected. Keep moving over here a little bit. Now we're going to do the standard process, right click in the open space and say get player controller, like we do, and we'll grab the same thing we did before, set show mouse cursor, right? In this case, I'm gonna have it, turn the cursor on, because we're pausing the menu, right? So we turn the cursor back on. And we wanted to set input mode UI only, because we've paused. So it's going to open the pause menu, which means we want to be controlling only the UI, not the game in the UI. But all it is just the execution order and the right options. So we come in here, the pause button loads a widget, which is our pause widget, adds it to the viewport, sets the cursor to be turned on, and sets it to UI mode only. Now one of the things you can do is you can select all the stuff that you've just been making and click the C button. And then call this pause. Just pause. How about that? And like I do, so you can just, I'm going to make a dark color so that I know that it was one that I created. So it's easier to see that it's one of the ones that I added. I go compile and save. Oh, and one more thing. Come in here. Forgot. We're pressing the pause button, right? So we want to pause the game. This time it's true. So when we click the pause button, the game is paused. When we click the resume button, we unpause the game. And that should be everything. I've compiled and saved. So if we run, the game begins. If we come in here and click the P, it pauses it right in the middle of the action. We're no longer controlling the game mode or controlling input only. It turned my cursor on. If I quit, it'll quit the game. if I do this, it takes us back. And now the options button doesn't work like before. The quit will quit. Start will start the game again. So we've restarted because we went return to the main map. Go over here, pause the action, and in here it's opening the pause menu. If we click resume, it takes us right back to where we were, kicking this blue box. And resume again. And at any time we want, we could pause it, return to the main menu, and start the level over if we like. Or, you know, quit the game. But that is how we create the main menu. Now we're going to create our own custom level using landscaping. And that is in part 2.